对，谢谢。
Mandy，我这样就可以，对不对？就可以了。好。Okay, so we'll start our webinar now. So we are going to discuss this issue, this online scam industry that's been very pervasive, not only in Taiwan, in Southeast Asia, but globally. Okay. The purpose of our webinar today is that this is a rapidly emerging and evolving and spreading phenomenon that involve outsourcing employment system of labor supply chain, but also issues of human trafficking. We want to focus on this cyber scam case in Taiwan, Southeast Asia, such as Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, Myanmar, Philippines, Indonesia, but also Middle East and also Eastern Europe and also elsewhere. And it is a case combined with extreme violence and also new technology of human trafficking. We know that human trafficking is an age-old practice, but now it is upgraded or enabled by high technology and also along with forced labor. A much more complicated background that involve legal procedure and high-tech industries, translocal cooperation, connectivity among local organization, organized crime system. So our questions, okay, why are these illegal activities allowed to happen and through legal procedures? Okay. What are the loopholes in local laws to facilitate the translocal recruitment system that handled human trafficking and forced labor? And how are the highly developed information system and digital technology help upgrade the transnational employment network and modern forms of human trafficking? And fourth, how did this large-scale crime expose the corruption between high-ranking officials and local institutions of every country? The connections between local corporate groups and organized crime group. Lastly, this event today, okay, will be the beginning of our series of workshops combining scholars from different countries and independent media work, and also NGO activist group to reflect on how in this 21st century, there's continuously updated and pervasive network technology of this data platform will contribute to these new forms of forced labor and human trafficking. Okay, we want to think not only the crime scene, but also the background system or apparatus that would enable all this to happen and move into a more and more serious degree of cruelty of our society. So we have several important speakers. Actually, the first would be Alicia Chen Yingyu, an award-winning journalist specialized in forced migration, forced labor, and human rights. Her work appeared in several important media, including the Washington Post, The Guardian, Al Jazeera, Radio Free Asia, and also Reporter. Actually, our awareness of this issue actually started maybe 2-3 years ago, starting from Al Jazeera's report and also the Reporter, mainly by Chen Yinyu and Alicia Chen and Mina Jiang and other reports. So Alicia, do you want to start to share your screen? Mm-hmm.
Can you see my presentation now? Can you hear me clearly? Okay.
Yes,
Good.
very clear.
Okay. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me here, and then thanks to Professor Liu for inviting me to this webinar. I think this is a very important topic, and as Professor Liu mentioned, Mina and I, Mina's reached me like a year ago, and then we started doing this investigation. And then she has carrying on this very important work and continue doing like research and then investigation to raise more awareness. But today I will more focus on our reports published a year ago. I was looking forward to attending this event in person and to meet Professor Liu, students, and of course my dear friends Mina. Actually, Mina and I were both graduated from Tsinghua University, the campus of which is just right next door. I miss Hsinchu and the food around there, but unfortunately, I caught food yesterday, and then I don't really want to infect others. So please forgive me that I can only present online today. As Professor mentioned, and I'm an independent journalist and focusing on topics like forced migration, forced labor, and human rights. And in July 2022, I collaborated with a reporter, Taiwanese independent media organization, to do a series of stories on Taiwanese people trafficked to Cambodia's scamming compounds. And it got a lot of attentions. And then the police launched like anti-trafficking operations across Taiwan to try to stop people from like falling victim to trafficking in Southeast Asian countries. I'm glad today we are here 1 year later after the story is published. Can you know that the people still care about this? As we know, online scams and fooled by the victims of human trafficking are still unfolding. And I'm currently based in Taiwan. I have reported from countries like Lebanon, Colombia, and Ukraine. But I was also in Cambodia in 2017 and 18. I lived there and worked for an NGO which aims at ending human trafficking in Cambodia. But when I was there, most of the cases we heard and know are still like Cambodian victims being trafficked abroad. They were trafficked to Middle East or Taiwan on Taiwanese fishing vessels. When I heard this news from Mina, I was very shocked. It was in July 2022. As Mina knew, I used to live in Cambodia. So she contacted me and asked if I could help find a safe shelter for PP, the first Taiwanese survivors we knew. She was in a scamming compound in Cambodia, and she told us she was sold to different fraud factories and was beaten, electrocuted, and raped several times. And she was forced to carry out romantic scams, or the so-called pig barterings, 杀猪盘. I'd never heard about things like this before. In the beginning, like I didn't even think about doing the stories. A small group of friends, including Mina and I, was just trying to find possible ways to help victims who were held captive in the scam dreams, to get out of the scamming compounds. But not much later, we realized that the actual number of Taiwanese victims was much higher than we thought. Between June 2021 and August 2022, almost 5,000 Taiwanese citizens were recorded traveling to Cambodia and then not returning. The police said they had identified this 370 of them as being held against their will. Victims, of course, they witnessed the situations inside, and they have told us the number was likely to be much higher. At the time, only about 50 people had returned to Taiwan. And of course, that's in figures a year ago. This crime's still ongoing, and then until till 2023 until now. PP, the first victims, the first survivors we met, was one of them who returned to Taiwan. When she came back, I accompanied her to a police station to report the case. The first time I met her, she was completely traumatized. She couldn't make an eye contact, couldn't talk properly, and she told me she couldn't go to a place where they were too crowded or with too many men present. And she told me she couldn't sleep at night, or even if she managed to sleep, she would have a nightmare about a terrifying experience in the scamming compounds. She told us that a Taiwanese agent messaged her a few weeks ago on WeChat and then referred job opportunities in Cambodia. She saw the agent as Taiwanese, so she felt she could trust her. But in the end, she became a trafficked labor in the scamming compounds run by Chinese companies in the poor city of Cambodia. She told me that it was Taiwanese who saw Taiwanese. Of course, this kind of online scams and human trafficking is beyond borders. It's across a transnational criminal networks. But it's also very shocking for the Taiwanese society that why this happens to Taiwanese people, and why has the fraud industry in Cambodia grown so fast in the past few years? Why these criminal groups wanted to target Taiwanese citizens? It's a very important question to ask. One of the reasons is that Cambodia's launched a law to ban gambling starting from January 1st, 2020. So the law prohibits various online gambling activities to maintain safety and public order. That's what the government says. The change of the policy has caused the Chinese overseas special economic zones, where the scamming compounds are located right now. That has benefited from China's Belt and Road Initiative in the past to fall into idling. So a large number of constructions halted, and then populations living in the zones withdrawing. So according to the local immigrations bureau, more than 400,000 Chinese have left the country, left Cambodia after the ban took effect, including many that holding long-term visas. So how to fill that gap? When the gambling companies lost their profits, lost their people, their employees, they started looking for ways to survive. So some of them turned their business into online schemes and companies. that were also operate online and then were even more profitable. In the early stage, those fraud factories mainly recruit people from China. But in 2021, the Chinese government started cracking down on overseas criminals who were involved in online scams. So we're to find the people who can still speak Chinese. Then Taiwanese people become the target. Also from the Chinese-speaking society, Taiwanese citizens might be better than other Southeast Asian citizens to fill this gap. Yeah, so how do they manage to do that? If you want a big group of people to go there and do like illegal online scams, the Taiwanese gangs in Taiwan and try to recruit innocent people there. That's make this become like human trafficking. So we also talk to more survivors to understand like bigger pictures how traffickers in Taiwan succeeded in sending thousands of people to scamming compounds in Southeast Asian countries. At the time, mainly in Cambodia and Myanmar, but also in Thailand, and we heard several cases they went to Thailand or Laos. I will show everyone the report that we did here. Let me share the screens. Can you see the report on the screen? Can everyone see the report?
Yes, we can see that.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, so we talked to more survivors, and then of course this might quite similar to other victims from different countries, but as said, everything is like they post online in Mandarin, and also there's some like tactics that's we're focusing on young people in Taiwan, so that I want to like go through this process. First, like they post like job ads on like messaging and social media, and then target mostly young people, offering like a well-paid work and accommodations approach. And once those job seekers reach out to the people, the traffickers, they would provide like a fake information about the companies and arrange like face-to-face interviews, and so that job seeker feel like as if everything we're very organized, so they can trust the people in front of them, as they already met this person. And then later on they would provide like contracts and also help them to apply for like visa documents they need, or even like offer them, they can bring them to like hospitals to get vaccines, something like that. And then before the trip, the traffickers will also arrange a hotel room for the job seekers to sleep one night at the hotel, because they want to make sure they can get on the flight and like they can catch the early morning flight tomorrow. And some of the survivors told us that they even hired one person to stay in the same rooms with them. And then, what they say, just like, to protect them, and then want to wake them up in the morning. But that's just pretty much the traffickers want to make sure that they leave Taiwan to Cambodia. And when they arrive in the airports, this is the photos I took by my colleagues, the reporter. The job seekers were escorted by demand, and then they will provide all the documents they need, or even give them some money so that they can use once they arrive in Cambodia. And then if the police approached them, they would answer all the questions for the job seekers. And once they arrived in Cambodia, their passports are taken, and they will be sent to those scamming compounds in southern Cambodia. And then the world force carry out that online scams, romantic scams, and they even offered like that 38 pages of scripts to teach them that how to lure innocent people online, and then ask them to invest money into like a cryptocurrency. One of the survivors also drew the map where she was confined. She was not allowed to leave this building. And then it's not like there are several departments, not just like online, doing like online scams or like illegal phone scams. There's a department called Human Resource Department. One of our survivors was sent to that department. What she has to do is to find people in her circles and then try to convince them to come to the compounds as the trafficker did to her. And she refused, and she pretended she was working, but she was like trying to find a way to get out of the compounds. And some of them were even electrocuted, abused, or raped. And then this is all the testimonies we get from our interviewees. So this is just a glimpse of how this works. And I think the ways, the tactics those traffickers use is different now. I think maybe Nida later will talk more about, this the fast changings of this industry. So I will come back to my presentations. So yes, as you see, this man like escorted young travelers, and as even the police approached them and try to convince them that inform them the risks they might encounter in Cambodia. But what they can't do is to stop them from leaving the country because they don't have enough evidence. When my colleague Will Young was there, and he saw like some young travelers were escorted by 2 or 3 men who wore shorts, flip-flops, and have like big tattoos on their arms or legs. They don't have any bags or luggage, as you can see in a photo. Of course, we can't say 100% they are part of this criminal network. But my colleagues notices that they would stay there until they make sure like those travelers boarded the plane and then arrive in Cambodia. So we also talked to like Taiwan's criminal investigation bureaus, and they told us that they had never seen such a sophisticated cross-border human trafficking network, with all the victims being Taiwanese. The network of this like outsourcing recruitment systems included Taiwanese gangs and Southeast Asian employment agencies and the Chinese fraud companies. And Taiwanese gangs were in charge of recruitment. And when we talked to the police, and then they showed us the notes of those traffickers, and we were very surprised that they defeated their recruitment operations into tasks as small as driving employees to the airport, or waking them up at a hotel, or just, waiting at the airport and making sure they get on the flight. Everyone involved in this network could share the profits. So they would like 5% to someone who would drive a job seeker to the airport, 5% to them to staying one night in a hotel. If we do like a rough calculations, like each head, each person, can be sold for about 25,000 US dollar to 30,000 US dollars in scamming compounds. And you can imagine how big the profit can be and wide this criminal groups in Taiwan will try their best to send as many people to Cambodia or Myanmar as possible. And this is Yutang. She is one of the survivors we talked to, and the only one who chose to use her real name in our story. As she said, that she wanted to let the people know that this is real, and please don't go there. No. Yutang, one thing I want to highlight is that Yutang is also a victim of online scams. She's graduated from university and then had a decent job before, but she invested in cryptocurrency and was deceived by an online scammer, and she lost a lot of money. And that's why she was panicked. She was trying to find a shortcut to get the money back. That's why she didn't think twice when she saw like high-paying job offers on social media. And after she returned, she was actively involved in rescue operations. The rescues have been complicated by inadequate policing and corruptions in Cambodia. For example, families of the victims often had to pay ransoms to the local police and military to be able to return home. And if the family doesn't have enough money, some they chose to seek help from other Taiwanese gangs. So it's like a vicious cycle. Even if it's not from the same branch of the Taiwanese gangs, they might, when they come back, they might have to show appreciation to those people and then fall victim into to other organized crimes. That's what we're seeing is a very complicated situation. In the end, I want to talk a bit more about what happened after the stories are published in Taiwan. The stories received overwhelming media attention, and then really just my friends, family, even my aunt who never really talk about news or care about politics, and then still talk about it over dinner. And people in Taiwan societies were just like worried, like someone in their circle would fall victim to trafficking in Southeast Asian countries. When I was in an indigenous tribe in Hualien, a lady friend told me that one young man from her village also went to Cambodia. And so, and his family had lost contact with him. So it's pretty much everywhere around that time. So the impact on of the stories was beyond our expectations. It to some extent has contributed to the decrease in the number of innocent people being trafficked to scamming compounds in Southeast Asian countries. But I have to admit one thing, unavoidably, the coverage has also put extra pressure or even trauma on our interviewees, as they are not the so-called perfect victims. People think that, you want to you want to earn quick money, that's your responsibility, something like that. After our stories got a wide range of attention, PP, the first Taiwanese survivors we met, decided to accept pretty much all the interviews from local media outlets. And if the people know a bit more about the media environment in Taiwan, we know how scary it would be. Not all of them respect her, and but she wanted to share her stories and reach as many people as possible. She also attended a press conference to share her experience in front of like dozens of cameras. What she hoped for was that no more victims would be trafficked there and experience the same horrific things that she had gone through. But she, at the same time, received a lot of backlash and cyber attacks from online netizens. even her family and friends didn't understand her. For Yutang, more people knew that she was involved in rescue operations, and she received tons of emails and messages from survivors of their families. She saw she had a responsibility for helping them get out of the compounds. But that burden also made her almost burnt out. I think Mina and I also knew about the situations. So a year later, like PPE, still, I messaged her earlier this week, and then she said she kept receiving hurtful messages online. And then as a single mother with a 4-year-old daughter, she's still facing financial challenges. So all of this shows that the survivors, even after they come back from those scamming compounds to their home, still need so much support, like economic, social, and psychological support. Where are they now, and have they gotten back on track, or they fallen victim to other crimes again? So I think that's the part that the aspect that we can continue paying attention to, how the society can provide stronger safety nets for those people who are more marginalized in society, and then can keep them away from those criminal network. Yeah, maybe we can talk a bit more about this. And yeah, this is my presentation today. I think Minat will share more updates on this like fast-changing online scam industries fueled by human trafficking globally. But I want to bring more like attentions into to what happens in Taiwan, as many people knew this case in Taiwan knew this case because of what happened here a year ago. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Alicia. Alicia has been continuing working on this issue, and she got her award for excellent journalist award this year, 2023, and she has still been working on issues happening at Lebanon, Cambodia, and Ukraine, and so on. So we have to know that whatever Alicia has described is not at remote places, okay? It also happened in Taiwan, Xizhi, okay? It's among a neighborhood. It can't be a building, okay? Mina said that in my office, if we set up computers, we can do that, okay? But why does it happen? Okay, there's a pig slaughtering industry. This industry scale crime and also human trafficking and forced labor can happen also at this science park in this Cambodia, but also in our science park in Xizhi and elsewhere. For example, in Malaysia, Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, India, Hong Kong, China, but also Germany, okay, Dubai, and all over. Okay, I think Mina can help us to see a larger scale. I thought it's only among this Southeast Asian countries, but she said that it has been upgraded to like 40 different countries. So this is actually a zero production fee, right? But with this high-tech assisted crime industry, how and why our society or our legal framework can allow this extreme violence and cruelty to happen? It's just like very traditional gangsters all of a sudden upgraded to this 3.0 crime industry. So we want to see the system behind it. So we are very happy to have Jiang Yuming, Mina Chang, to give us some more update information about this picture. She is the founder and director of Human Research Consultancy, HRC. Okay, it is an award-winning UK-based social enterprise, revolutionizing the fight against modern slavery and human trafficking. So with research experience in modern slavery, forced labor, and human rights issues across a wide range of UN bodies, governments, and NGOs, Mina is an expert, okay, very well-known expert, especially for her expertise in countering forced labor in the scamming compound in Southeast Asian countries and forced labor in the fishing industry. She has been interviewed by over 20 and more media, okay, and so on. So I think I'll just let her start her talk. Okay.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much, Professor Joyce, for inviting me to speak today in the for this important topic. It's really a pleasure. So I will start. Yeah. So great. I'm going to talk about three major issues. First one, how the criminals recruit other criminals, and how the criminals recruit victims, all the way from different countries. The third one, what roles that different nationalities play in their process in being forced to take. So yeah, just like what Alicia described, it's very much similar. Like people, victims tell us that how they thought it's a good job, for example, in Thailand, in Myanmar, in Cambodia, when they arrived, they drove the victims all the way to Myanmar or other places and told them it's a scamming business. When they start saying no, the criminal beat them up. And the compound is usually fenced and guarded. When we say a compound, we mean like a kind of group of buildings, and victims cannot escape. We also had a lot of cases that they being sold between different companies. Companies are more like different criminal groups. Then maybe, for example, this one is using LinkedIn to target Americans. The next one is using a dating app to target Europeans to scam. And then when the victims try to call the police, they realize there was no rescue, and sometimes they're being restored again. So just a very simple graph to describe. Behind the screen, it's criminal activities. On the other side, it's victims who lose their money, big amount of money, their life savings, pensions to the criminal. So how big is the crime? I want to emphasize that since we learned about it last year, around July, nowadays the UN bodies is saying that in one Southeast Asian countries, we basically know it's Cambodia, the amount the criminals is earning from these activities is around half of the country's GDP. So imagine that half of the country's GDP is basically illicit earning from scamming. How devastating it is. The other screenshot underneath, again, this is a OHCHR, another UN body, saying hundreds of thousands of victims are trafficked to work as online scammers in Southeast Asia, and they are describing, for example, more than 100,000 in Cambodia, more than 100,000 in Myanmar, so there's several hundreds of thousands. And this is a picture of Tachilik. Tachilik is an area in Myanmar, in an area called Wa State. So all the red dots are scamming compounds. Basically, when you have a building, when you have internet and computers and some like iPhones, you can start doing this business. And in Cambodia, for example, this is a notorious Chinatown compound, 中国城园区, where I actually just visited a few weeks ago. I came back from Cambodia a few weeks ago, and it was pretty shocking that the criminals just described directly that the police are our employees, and if the victims try to, let's say, call for help, the hotline is basically also going to our office. So very much blunt and direct saying that. And the compound, like that entire area, you can see on the screen, has around, like the capacity is around like hosting for around 4,500 people. And inside there are lots of restaurants, lots of KTV, there are also brothels. The gate is closed, so people who go in and out has to go through certain channels. So for example, you show them you are in their Telegram group, so therefore you can go in. And then in Myanmar, this is a very, like on the left-hand side, this is the KK compound, very famous, particularly in Taiwanese media. This is around the border of Myanmar and Thailand. You can see all the buildings there, like the red roof buildings, including scamming activities, dormitory, torture room. On the right-hand side, this is Tachilik again. It's very ironic. This is actually quite close to the airport, and we have learned lots of victims from Africa. For example, Uganda, Kenya, South Africa will be trafficked to this area in Tachilik. Also in Laos, so for example, this area called the Golden Triangle Special Economic Zone, SEZ, it's owned by a guy called Zhao Wei. Zhao Wei is a certified criminal. When I say certified criminal, I mean like he's already listed in the US Magnitsky Global Sanction for his crime involving in, let's say, animal trafficking, illegal lodging, and other activities. But he's also owning these special economic zones, and he has a lease of 99 years with the Laos government. Basically means inside this special economic zone, he makes his own rules, he makes his own law, and there are lots of scamming activities inside. Recently, several months ago, my team and I, we have also rescued another person, Taiwanese, from this special economic zone. They were describing all nationalities, like Spain or like, you know, European nationalities working inside here, and they are doing scammings and fraud, like almost basically legally, because they make the law there. Next slide, I'm going to show you some devastating impact of what's going on. The next slide is not going to be very comfortable, so if you don't feel like one will see, just close your eyes. This is the picture that victims send us, the videos of people being tortured. You can see all the bruises on their skin, being electrified, their fingers being cut off. So I just passed that slides now. When victims go in, as Alicia also described, that there could be scripts, and they sometimes we also heard certain teams are like in charge of developing new scripts, so always writing new stories how they can scam the victims more efficiently. Essentially, what we learned almost in all countries in both like Cambodia, Myanmar, Laos, Philippines, Dubai, we are seeing similar kind of structure. On the very top, we see local authorities. That could mean like very high-level government officials, like for example in Cambodia's case, the Hong families is very much sheltering the scamming compounds, or some like military officials. But sometimes it could also be just more local authorities, like a local police. Anyway, authorities protecting the compound owners, which is basically like landlords. So like the owner of that big area and all the buildings. And of course, owners are paying them bribes, or like in another way to describe it, the authorities are in the payroll of the criminals. Mm-hmm. We heard crazy numbers, you know, weekly, monthly, for like crazy amount of money. And then the compound owners, the landlords, they are also providing the space for the tenants, which means sometimes could be, let's say, a Chinese gang going to the compound, or like next door, another building, it's a Taiwanese criminal groups, or let's say like Malaysian criminal groups. So these are more like tenants who are renting out those spaces to conduct the scam, and they are submitting the monthly dues or rent, whichever way you like to call them. And in return, the compound owners are protecting them, to allowing them to do this so-called 灰色产业, shady industry, in a safer zone. And then the company owners, they may have managers. The company owners could be, for example, enjoying their life in Australia, in the UK, or like having some tigers enjoying their lives as pets in Singapore. But the company owners are more like CEO, who's like day-to-day inside the compound to forcing the workforce to work on scamming. Actually, when I visited Cambodia, in one of the office space, it was empty, but they still have some banners on the wall, and it says basically, if you're not harsh enough, your employee will not work well, and if you're too kind, you cannot earn money. So just like really crazy words. Some of the victims also describe how when they were in the compound, in the morning they'll be forced to like chant something like, for example, earn hard enough, and that for 3 generations you'll be rich. So yeah, anyway, the company managers are the one that's really making the rules and also torturing, for example, the victims. And they are also collaborating with the source country-based trafficking groups. So when I say source country, I mean, for example, Taiwan, or like Bangladesh, all the countries that have victims that went into the compounds. So how did you manage to, let's say, traffic victims all the way from Ethiopia it's almost unlikely. Most likely in Ethiopia, you also have some recruiters or traffickers who are willing to collaborate with criminals, let's say in Cambodia, and therefore you can send people all the way to Southeast Asia. And we are talking about a huge amount of money flowing, like I mentioned, half of the country's GDP. So money laundering service is another very huge permanent element in this. There are lots of financial systems that we identified. Casinos are basically the kind of channels for laundering those money. So now the first question, how did the criminal manage to recruit other criminals? So these are some Telegram groups. These are open public groups. So as you can see, that there's a join button underneath. I haven't even joined the groups, but I'm able to see the conversation inside. The one on the left-hand side, it says, like the person saying, oh yeah, I'm based in Guangdong, I have my passport, I have experience of pig butchering, I don't want to go to Dubai or Philippines, I want to search for a small company, anybody who wants to take me. So this is like a kind of industry of its own. I will keep using the word industry because it is. They are employers who want to recruit people. They are scammers who knows what's going on, you know, openly, but then they are still happy to join a scamming company because sometimes they are just doing like a shady industry, but they're not necessarily involving, let's say, beatings or torture. So some of the scammers think they can join those companies and still earn a good amount of money. And on the right-hand side here, again, like somebody saying in the middle, in Dubai, there are 4 people, they are searching for a role called promotion. Basically, when you do scan, there are lots of different detailed elements, and they are searching for, you know, companies. And by the way, like it's a mixture. Like some people they are promoting themselves, some people they are selling others. For example, there's another one saying they are in Philippines, they are getting rid of girls. The girls has nationality of China, Mexico, Russia, Vietnam. These are young, virgin, and they are selling those girls to other countries. So it's pretty mind-blowing on how open. And this is a group, Telegram group of more than 22,000 people inside. And this is only just one group. There are many, many like this. You search online, you can see lots of conversation like that. It's an entire criminal chain. So on the left-hand side, you can see people are selling SIM cards, just specializing in selling SIM cards. And even when I was in Cambodia on the street, again, you can see people providing like IP addresses. It's an industry of its own. It's a bit like imagining, let's say, the car supply chain or like the computer supply chain. There are people who are digging the mineral, people who are making the assembly line, people who are like specializing in certain type. It's the same for this criminal industry. And in the middle, another post. This is somebody who run away from the compound, and the criminals are putting a bounty on his head and say, if you catch this person, they will reward you for a certain amount of money. On the right-hand side, again, sorry, this is some very disturbing images. There are certain channels, they are particularly just sharing disturbing channels because people are willing to purchase those images. So it's really, really concerning on many levels on how this criminal activity is corrupting the society. And this area of Darasakor, again in Cambodia, is actually hotel, like really kind of a fancy hotel. And on the US embassy, you can see Darasakor is sanctioned, again sanctioned under Global Magnitsky Authority. This is like human rights sanction. But then on the left-hand side, you can see on TripAdvisor, you can still book a hotel room in this Darasakor. So it's again like emphasizing how the criminals are operating in these areas of organized criminal crime. So it's a bit like thinking, for example, the drug dealers in Central Latin America that everyone knows who he is, but then still he's able to operate like freely, or like Italian mafia, similar kind of a story. So the kind of a blue circle is the organized crime, illegal business, but on the kind of a yellow circle is legal business. They still need to use the banks. They still need to use, for example, hotels. They are very much kind of blurring into legal businesses. And that's a scary part because you can interact with them without knowing, for example, construction companies building a building for criminals, but then being asked to build the torture rooms inside as well. Okay, so this screenshot, It's from a YouTuber who's I would call him an ethical hacker. Basically, he's able to hack into scammers' computer. So you can see that on this app, it's called Hello World. It allows you to open several accounts at the same time, like WhatsApp account, Telegram account, and the criminals or scammers are chatting at the same time with multiple phone numbers. You can see +44, that's a UK number, plus 880, I don't remember it's Bangladesh number or which number, but they are chatting. And there's also a translation function built in to the software. So when you are, let's say, typing in Chinese, it can translate automatically to Spanish, allowing you to scan the Spanish victims. So it's basically designed for activities like that. One person, you can chat to 100 people in a day and then filtering them and trying to scam them. Now, the second question, how do criminals recruit victims all the way from countries far away? So, for example, last year when we started learning the Taiwan case, we identified 5 major recruitment methods. One is through like legal major job matching platform. For example, in Taiwan is 1111 or 104. These are job platforms that are advertising for those jobs. The second way, which is very dangerous, is through personal networks. So as Alicia also described, some victims, once they are kept in the compounds, they are being asked to recruit their friends, high school friends, university friends, friends you met in the military service. So that's particularly dangerous because you may trust your friends. And then also traffickers, they pretend to be clients of a certain profession. So for example, oh yeah, they need magicians to come perform, or they need a designer to come. So they're targeting certain profession and saying, hey, like we need you in Cambodia. And that's also very dangerous. The fourth way, we found like a lot of those advertisements are from social media, like Telegram, Line, Facebook, and then also through kidnapping. So some of the Russian victims, we knew that they are basically having the honeymoon in Cambodia and then being kidnapped into the compound. I mean, it didn't happen all the time, but there was a certain period that in Sihanouk Vale, which is the area in Cambodia, kidnapping happens quite regularly. So, and then we also see a lot of Chinese victims. In Myanmar's case, this is, I mean, the dark gray zones, Myanmar's map. The little green area are the 2 areas that we see lots of scamming compound. On the top one, that's basically in the border of Myanmar and China, close to Yunnan province. So the borders, basically you can travel through the forest or the land and you can go to the other side. So we see lots of Chinese victims. They were brought directly from China into Myanmar, and in that area, for example, called the Mongnan, like lots of compounds. So that also we found overwhelmingly the victims from China are male. And why? Because we realized that in China, the human trafficking law only recognize female and children can be potentially victim of human trafficking, but male cannot be. So very likely that's the reason why trafficker knows you can target male and then you will never be charged as human trafficking because male cannot be recognized for human trafficking. And then, so recently, actually in the last few months, in September 2023, there are lots of law enforcement from China. So basically Chinese police and military entering Myanmar, working together with Myanmar authorities to target certain compounds and to raid, to break into those compounds and bring them home. So this is the kind of border. If you can see the words, it says the Monglian port. So this is between Yunnan province and Myanmar. And so lots of victims and criminals are being brought back that way. However, what we understand is that Chinese authorities are not really meaning to crack down all the compounds, but more like don't scan Chinese anymore, because a lot of victims who lose their money are from China, and also a lot of victims who've been brought to Myanmar are from China. So Chinese authorities basically like, okay, go for international. And that's actually, I can very much confirm that, because when I was physically in Cambodia, the criminals were also saying, oh yeah, you speak English, and this is what we need. We need more international people who can scam internationally, because we don't want to do Chinese market anymore. That's how they call market. So yeah, this is the trend that we are observing, and very likely we still need to fight for this for a while. And so I'm also in a WeChat group that has more than 400 Chinese parents who are searching ways to bring their children home from those fraud compounds. And it's just, it's a devastation. You can see that many of them have been trying so hard, but then the reactions, let's say from the Chinese police, are pretty passive previously, until recently that the attitude start changing. And there's another case, for example, this is another Taiwanese victim's survivor. He's now back home that I'm quite familiar, quite close with them. So this is the trafficking rule that he self-described to me. He was in Cambodia, but at some point he was going to be sold to Myanmar. Cambodia and Myanmar are not bordering each other, so they always have to go through Thailand. And this is the rule that he described from like Sihanouk fell, he was being like, transferred to the border. He go through some kind of farm, and then like go through some big like market, and he in the end jumped the car to leave the criminal. So we are seeing that a very kind of a complex map that criminals are operating mainly around the border, border of between Cambodia and Thailand, Thailand and Myanmar, and also Cambodia and Vietnam. So it's popping up, and it's in a speed that very hard for us to catch. The third one I want to discuss is about the roles that different nationality victims are being forced to take. So as Professor Joyce also mentioned, like we have documented lots of victims from everywhere. I mean, personally, I have met around like 70 victims, and mainly from Taiwan, China, East African countries, and like Southeast Asian countries. But I've also met 2 American victims actually. Like so this is the map that we created several months ago, and now actually like the number is doubling, because almost every month you are learning new nationalities that becoming victims of this crime. So we mainly talk about being forced to act as scammer, but beyond that, there are actually many different types of rules. So for example, when you want to scam somebody, you need to let them believe there's a real person behind the screen. So there are some females in the end being forced to act as models. So they are the one that will turn on the camera and then say, hello, darling, like morning, evening. This is the models. And so some people are being forced to act as models. And as I described, like a lot of compound, they also have brothels inside the compound. Then there will be ladies who are being trafficked to provide sex. And this is the type that actually is extremely difficult to rescue them, because for the victim of a scam, I mean, scammer victims, at least they can access phones and computers, they can reach out for help. But when they are being forced to provide sex, most likely they are entirely cut off with the rest of the world. There are also some people being forced to act as security guards. So we learned that security guards are for example, in front of the company, in the buildings, like that floor, or like on the gates. So there could be several layers of security guards. So even though they act as security, not necessarily are willing to do so. So one of my company's employee called Salam is also a survivor of human trafficking. He described that some of the security guards he met are like Nepalese, and they didn't want to work in the compound, but they are also being forced to stay there. Some of the victims are being forced to act as agents. What does it mean, agent? Because the compound owner, they still need to sort out their daily necessities. They need to have food, they need to have luxury goods, they want to buy some like tigers or lions as their pets. So there are certain agents that will work for them. And those agents can also be victims of human trafficking. So we realized that Chinese and African victims, usually they experience the worst torture. For the Chinese part, likely it's because like a lot of the Chinese victims, their profile are actually quite very much from rural area. Many of them didn't really receive a higher education. For example, most of the Taiwanese victims that we come across, they do have a university degree, high school degree. They are very much like educational background wise is a bit higher. But some of the Chinese victims, they are not that much familiar with typing. They type very slowly. And what happens is like they experience much more torture than other Chinese criminals beat them up. For African victims, or sometimes for Southeast Asian victims, we also realize there could be some like racism going on, and so they are being like hurt very badly. Like actually, just a week ago, I received lots of video recordings are from many Ugandan victims, and they are describing every single day they are being beaten up. But in that case, it's really sticky because they are in a compound that's so powerful that nobody's able to rescue them at the moment. And we also realize a lot of Latin American victims are mainly female and being forced to act as models. So again, this is just a trend that we are observing. But as I mentioned in the beginning, there are hundreds of thousands of victims potentially. So it is still very early for us to have a very clear and detailed trend to say that. Some of the Southeast Asian nationals, like what I mentioned, Nepalese or like Indians are being forced to act as security guards. And so yeah, HRC, we have produced 3 briefings so far, actually 4th one already, and they are mainly kind of the first one we published in September 2022 that really very much to raise the international attention, and that one was quite successful. We were quoted by UNODC report, and then the second one about guidance to responding to victims of enforced scam labor, emphasize importance of a non-punishment principle. So non-punishment principle means when the person conducts some criminal act like scam, but is under the force of other reasons, then the person should not be punished for those scamming activities they did. So this is called non-punishment principle applied on victims of human trafficking. And then the third briefing, we focus on global sanctions. So like emphasizing how we can try to target some criminals to create criminal accountabilities, because as what we say, there are pervasive corruption going on, and this is the main source of why criminals can operate freely. So if Cambodia or Myanmar or Laos cannot punish those criminals, can we try to, let's say, emphasize European Unions or Americans or different other countries sanctioning those criminals? That means those criminals will not be able to access, for example, their assets that's located in those countries abroad. So yeah, I also want to emphasize that since last year to now, we have seen Taiwanese authority and also other rescue organizations working very hard. So for example, the price of the Taiwanese victims had a very clear drop. Previously was around $25,000 when you buy and sell Taiwanese victims on the market. Afterwards, they dropped to almost around $6,000 because for criminals, if you purchase a Taiwanese in several weeks, they will be rescued. Then it's a bad business for them. So it does work if you try to conduct lots of rescue. And then we also, like at HRC, we have 2 employees who are survivors of human trafficking. So they tend to have quite good connections with what's going on the ground, and they are still telling us all the kind of updates. And so our recent work, yeah, we've been working quite closely, because now our goal, initially we did a bit of rescue, responding to the emergency. Then afterwards, we realized how important to really stop the criminal, because if the criminal can still operate freely, this issue will never finish. So we are working quite closely with governments around the world. So for example, working with the UK Home Office and the German authorities to strategize to stop these fraud compounds. Also, we just recently in November, we worked with Interpol. They are basically police internationally on one of their operations called Operation Stormmaker No. 2. Yeah, and I noticed the time, but I want to just mention briefly some points as well. So, for example, in terms of recruitment, we have also noticed that people not necessarily being recruited directly to the destination, but sometimes that could be a transit country. So, for example, we see like Dubai, because Dubai has a huge numbers of like other nationalities working there. For example, Indians or like Africans working in Dubai. Maybe they are working on some other job before, but then once they realize, like we want to search for new opportunities, we realize a lot of victims, they search for a job in Dubai and they are being transferred afterwards to like Laos or Myanmar. And the company in Dubai purchased flight ticket for them and everything, arranging them to go from Dubai to Southeast Asia. And I also want to emphasize the vulnerabilities of victims. So the Taiwanese victims that we come across, like even though they may have higher education, but we do realize many of them are from some kind of more vulnerable backgrounds. For example, their parents used to have like drug addict issues, or for example, they have always been like neglected or doesn't have very strong, clear support system. Again, like it varies. Some victims, maybe they are even their parents are even like members of Rotary group, and Rotary in Taiwan, it's very much regarded as like financially well, but then their daughters and children are still being victims of the human trafficking. So it's a spectrum, but we do realize many of them are from comparatively more vulnerable background. And also we do see, for example, the criminal, as Alicia mentioned, has a very sophisticated trend. So I purchased 2 flight tickets for 2 Taiwanese young girls who are just 18 years old from a Cambodia compound called like Boca Mountain. It's actually a kind of national park, very beautiful forest. But when I purchased a flight ticket for the 2 victims, I realized not only just like they are 18 years old, but the day they arrived Cambodia is the day after their passport was issued. So you can imagine maybe they've been brought up to those hotels that Alicia described, and the criminals will apply for passport for them. The moment when their passport is ready, straight away send them to Cambodia. And that's how it works, like a very clear trend. So yeah, this is some of the recruitment points I want to share. A bit about myself. So yeah, my company, I'm the founder of a humanity research consultancy, HRC. I'm also a peer review colleague of the UK Modern Slavery Policies and Evidence Center. I used to be a board member of the Rotary Action Group Against Slavery, and previously also supported some drafting of policy guide in the UN University Delta 8.7 initiatives. So HRC, we are UK-based award-winning social enterprise. We provide research, training, and consultancy services to various client types, including governments, NGOs, and private sectors. So NGOs are usually like larger international NGOs. So for example, like Oxfam or like Windrock International. Private sector, sometimes they want to understand their supply chain. Maybe there are issues of passport confiscation, there are issues of forced labor, so they may ask us to provide some training and services for them. Our philosophy very much is around creating the space for professionals local to their region. So if we are investigating issues around Cambodia, we have Cambodians who we can work with, who speak Khmer, who understand the culture. If we are working, for example, let's say in South Africa, then we have people who are originally from South Africa. And so far, we have worked with countries of over 20 countries and professionals from more than 20 different nationalities. We are also very much emphasizing survivor-centered. And that's the reason why we create a space to hire survivors to work with them together, worker-centered as well. So as Professor Joyce introduced, I do work a lot with migrant workers from Indonesia, from Philippines, working in Taiwan's fishing industry. Then we work quite closely with the worker. And so this is me. And thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we see that this zero production fee industry is growing, okay, across more than 40 countries, and the victims mostly are from very vulnerable family background, but also from maybe middle class. Okay, but so the pervasiveness and penetrating this chain into different countries. As I said, there's a very traditional mafia structure or gangster structure now has been upgraded into this high-tech industry. Okay? And the troubling issue is that actually when they call for help, the people who receive the call are the owners of the scam compound company, right? And when they really brought it up to the court or legal authorities, the legal authorities for example, in Cambodia, they turn it down because their higher officials are colluded or they are owned by the Chinese owner, right? Who bought their nationality through their investment. Similar cases are here in Taiwan, right? The the court doesn't take care of the victims' cases if those people are from very, very low class. Okay. And also this information technology company can be established in a small scale, like under 25 people, right? Then they don't need to be surveyed by some labor law, but in Xizhi, there are 40 companies within one building, okay, that serve this scan compound. So how does this also went into the Philippines? Okay, we know that in the Philippines, there are also many Chinese-owned casino or online casino or compound. Okay, Taiwanese people went to the Philippines and said, 吃菠菜. They joined the gambling industry. Okay, so 菠菜. This is reported by this the reporter. If you look up this independent news media 报道者, you see that another reporter has written, okay, a series of a report on this switch from this casino to online casino in the mode of this Samoa, also this an island in this Pacific Ocean, southern part. They can have this transnational network, okay, of their online casino supporting outsourcing recruitment and everything. So now that's here. Professor Tigno from the University of Philippines Department of Political Science, and also his colleague Jean in Ancina Franco, also from the Department of Political Science. They when I first approached them, they said that, oh, this is a very difficult issue that nobody has really done scholarly research on it. Okay, we know that we heard that many cases from the Philippines, but also Cambodia and Laos and Myanmar, Taiwan, and elsewhere. But we also do have some scholarly studies that if we do search, okay, we see that. But how do we really analyze the phenomenon, and how do they develop, okay, this pig slaughtering industry, and how does that happen in the Philippines? So maybe I'll give you two the floor, and yeah, you can start. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I can share my PowerPoint, or is somebody going to share it?
I think you should be able to share
You
directly.
can share it from your side.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
It's easier for you to control, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do you see it already? Okay. Thank you so much for inviting Dr. Jorge Tigno and I to talk to you during this very important forum. I'd like to thank Dr. Jorge Tigno for leading this research project and for having me on board. The title of our presentation is Social Media and Human Trafficking, Evidence from the Philippines. Human trafficking as an issue is very important in the Philippines. In fact, it's always in the news, reports of trafficking, but of course, because there are many offices or organizations that collect data, it's really difficult to have a definitive data. For this presentation, we will be looking at human trafficking based on the data of the U.S. Trafficking in Persons Report 2022. According to the report, the government reported identifying 1,802 victims compared with 1,534 potential victims identified in the previous reporting period. There are 535 in sex trafficking, 501 cases in forced labor, and 766 in unspecified exploitations. 551 were male and 1,251 were female. So as you can see, it's overwhelmingly female. In addition, NGOs and an international organization reported identifying 985 sex trafficking victims, 228 of whom were men, 742 were women, 197 were boys, and 545 were girls. And there are also 6 adult female labor trafficking victims during this reporting period. For a brief background, the Philippines is one of the world's foremost migrant sending countries. I think we rank about 4 or 5 in the world. And as you can see, in different periods of our history, the number of Filipino migrant workers going abroad has actually risen, no? Consistently risen since 1975, no? This except for some life and death cases involving migrant workers, and also, for instance, during the First and Second Gulf War. Okay. Why is migration very important? Because since 1970, it has actually been a source of economic stability. In 2022 alone, the Philippines has received $36.1 billion in remittances. And remittances is also counter-cyclical. Even if there is crisis situation abroad, it remains a viable source of revenues for the government. Aside from revenues, it has become an important social welfare component, because overseas Filipinos are able to send their children to private schools and send their sick families to private hospitals. That's why reports of human trafficking has been very sensitive, especially on the part of is sensitive to Filipinos, especially on the part of the Philippine government. No, in fact, the government of the Philippines fully meets the minimum standards for the elimination of trafficking, as reported in the very recent U.S. Trafficking in Persons report. However, prosecution and conviction are still very much works in progress. In fact, the U.S. Trafficking in Persons report indicated that the government did not report holding accountable officials allegedly complicit in human trafficking crimes. No, their operations have become very nuanced over the years, and that's why it's very hard for the government to keep up with the pace of their modus operandi. For this research project, our key questions are as follows. How were trafficking victims from the Philippines recruited, coerced, and deceived up to, during, and after the COVID-19 pandemic? What new forms of exploitation can be observed with trafficking victims from the Philippines? As you know, as I noted earlier, there have been new forms, no, of human trafficking, and in this project, we will be specifically focusing on the new space where human traffickers and scammers, illegal recruiters are actually thriving currently. And the Philippines is a good case study because, as you know, we were previously labeled as the petri dish of Facebook because of the proliferation of Filipinos engaging in social media. In fact, the internet is now the most popular channel of communication and information dissemination in the Philippines. According to the Philippine Statistics Authority, 50 million Filipinos have access to the internet as of the 2020 census. According to our Department of Information and Communication Technology, however, only around 35% of the country has internet access. Internet penetration is expected to reach 75% by 2028, according to some estimates. Facebook is still the top social media platform in the Philippines with over 95 million users or accounts. According to the social weather stations, an opinion polling organization in the country, 1 in 4 read news through Facebook, no, in 2020. In 2019, it was 1 in 5. Altogether, we argue that this is a recipe for the proliferation of untrue and often dishonest and misleading information. Now, for the next half of our presentation, I'd like to give the virtual floor to Professor Jorge Tigno. Sir, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Jean, and thank you also, Professor Liu, and to the Center for inviting us to contribute to this project. Just to add to what Jean has already said about the proliferation of this new type of human trafficking from the Philippines, it's important also to recognize the convergence of at least 3 factors that we can think of here, socioeconomic factors. The first factor is already what was discussed by Jean earlier about the overseas employment phenomenon from the Philippines. Every year, millions of Filipinos leave the country for jobs abroad. The second contributing factor to this new type of human trafficking has to do with also the proliferation of what we call BPOs in the Philippines, or call centers. The BPO industry in the Philippines contributes billions of dollars each year to the Philippine economy. BPO companies employ something like 1.3 million Filipinos in these call centers. And the third factor is already what Jean has also touched on, the preeminent location of the internet in the lives of many Filipinos today, especially at the turn of the 21st century, where you have millions of Facebook users and such. And so with this kind of convergence, I'd now like to touch on how the human traffickers are able to entice or recruit Filipinos to work in call centers and scam centers abroad. It's definitely no surprise, given the popularity of Facebook, that you will find interspersed with scenes and pictures depicting happy encounters and adventures abroad. For example, in this case of Thailand, the idea is to entice potential victims and to lure them into taking part in these kinds of conversations initially, or exchanges eventually, that will lead to them getting into this kind of human trafficking engagement. And the openings that are posted on these websites are usually for teachers, unlike in more traditional forms of human trafficking, where the advertisements are for, let's say, hospitality workers or domestic workers. Some of the openings that we're seeing now are usually for teachers, and As you can see in this post, the erroneous grammar can be revealing as they are posted here, but they are hardly noticed by the excited or eager applicants. Some are recruited also in the entertainment industry, and the Filipinos' facility in the English language also contributes to their kind of comparative advantage, no? to these scammers and to the human traffickers. A typical advertisement would indicate, and I think this was also taken up in Mina's presentation, they would indicate very basic information, but also not incomplete information. It's vague. A lot of it is vague. There is not much in terms of specific details. And if you do encounter, for example, a contact address, it's usually, as in this case, a Gmail address that is rather unofficial and quite arbitrary. The places where they are supposed to be employed would usually be just outside of Bangkok. And Bangkok is a destination for many Filipinos, so it would not attract the attention of the authorities if you have Filipinos going there initially. But eventually, they will end up in other places outside of Bangkok. And the expressions of interest and inquiry are usually, I mean, if one were to ask or inquire about the details of how they can take advantage of this kind of opportunity to go abroad to work, they are usually given a link or a direct message, and all is done outside of the public eye, at least in the public domain. Job openings are usually near the border areas, and here you can see the example of one inquiry being made, and they just say, oh, send us a direct message and we will give you the details. And usually the job postings are usually near the border areas. For instance, in Nong Khai, in northern Thailand, close to Laos, or Phetchaburi, which is close to Myanmar, although it can also happen in the big cities. Being close to the border areas can make it easier to cross over to Laos or Cambodia or Myanmar without generating too much attention from the authorities. In fact, the records might be only insofar as going to Thailand is concerned, but I mean, a Filipino going into Myanmar from Thailand is no longer going to be recorded from the Philippine perspective as going to Laos or Cambodia or Myanmar. Since when they left the Philippines, their destination was presumed to be to Thailand. The types of scams that trafficking victims are forced to do would include, as already mentioned by Mina and Alicia earlier, love scams, pig butchering, and cryptocurrency scams. Love scams are, of course, a method of getting the attention of a potential scam victim in a romantic relationship, and eventually to get the confidence of the victim, to win over certain details that would allow the scammer to divest the victim of any financial resources that the victim might have. Same thing goes for pig butchering, all that. Finally, I mean, it's safe to assume that we're no longer dealing with victimization here on an individual level or at a small group level. The victimization that's now taking place is done more collectively, more aggressively, and also in a way that allows it to be, that allows the information to be disseminated on a wider scale in order to make trafficking more profitable. Likewise, there is now a greater involvement of organized crime groups in human trafficking activities from the Philippines. The Philippines also, insofar as human trafficking activities are concerned, is a destination, a transit, and a source country. So the complexity of the situation, human trafficking situation in and from the country makes it difficult for the authorities to run after the trafficking syndicates and organized crime syndicates. At the same time, the trafficking of traditional trafficking modalities for domestic work or sexual exploitation has attracted a lot of attention on mass media, making it difficult for criminal syndicates to engage in those kinds of activities more and more. And thus the trafficking syndicates turn to office work exploitation or scam work exploitation, which at this point is still relatively new or emerging, and therefore is not able to attract as much media attention and outcry and scrutiny as compared to, let's say, outright sexual exploitation and exploitation in, let's say, plantations or fisheries and so on, since it's only an emerging phenomenon in the case of the Philippines. Although it's not to say that domestic work and sex work exploitation do not happen anymore, they still do. Social media networks have now added a new layer of dangerous complexity and efficacy to the human trafficking problem from the Philippines, compounded by the fact that, as I said earlier, we are a kind of hub for call center workers as a country. Social media has become a new mode of recruitment and deployment for traffickers. Human traffickers are becoming more and more linked with transnational organized crime syndicates, particularly the Chinese mafia that usually operate these offshore gaming operations. We call them POGOs in the Philippines. And we can see a link between these scamming compounds and the offshore gaming operations that are being set up or being operated on by these syndicates in these countries. Whereas before, human trafficking might include hiring for 3D jobs. Now they're hiring for scamming operations in scamming compounds, and traffickers force the victims to work many hours to scam people out of their earnings. Trafficking victims also end up with huge debts, as I think Nina also has discussed. ICT has made it possible for human traffickers to really exploit the vulnerabilities of and desperation also of the victims, especially during the pandemic, when a lot of migrant workers also returned to the Philippines and eventually found themselves jobless. New social media like Facebook and YouTube and TikTok have become a major channel for disseminating advertisements for recruiting to these scamming companies. However, given the nature of social media, it's very difficult really to determine whether an advertisement is really legitimate, because some legitimate companies do advertise also through these social networks and social media platforms. And so it's the mixing in with legitimate company recruitment modes combined with illicit modes that make it difficult for ordinary people to determine which ones are legitimate, which ones are scams, which ones are good. So we end at that with our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jane and Jorge. It's very clear from your side that we see that this internet ad becoming so detailed and so convincing, right? This curriculum provided, the fluency in English, they require English teacher, they require other details. So, and also detailed about its job, salary and location and office job and so on. So, but they ended up in the same torture room or same cruelty, same extreme violence. But where is this legal intervention, legal protection? And when we see that there are many collusion between higher authority and local gangsters and so on. So the victims are mostly the most vulnerable people from places that needs job. They need to go out for job. They don't have enough job opportunities in local society, so they take the chance to go out. So let's see the case from Indonesia. We have the pleasure of having Daniel Awira from Indonesia. He is the executive director of Indonesia's NGO Coalition for International Human Rights Advocacy, and also a co-chair for co-founder for better engagement between East and Southeast Asia. For vicious rights, for human rights. So we also know that he is knowledgeable about this human recruitment, cross-local, cross-regional, cross-nation collaboration of human recruitment, but oftentimes it will ended up as different forms of human trafficking into listed fishing vessels. So, Daniel, you may start, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm so honored being here, invited by Professor Joyce, as well as my friend Jonathan there. I'd like to first congratulate everyone that today we are celebrating the International Migrants Day. I think migrants always mentioned as a, like a tools of development, but we are, like always reminded today that without justice, there is no such development. So let me first share and a bit introduce myself about the things that already mentioned by Professor Joyce about my work in ASEAN, mainly on Southeast Asia, doing a policy advocacy. And somehow when we work on the regional frameworks of human rights, somehow we follow the agenda of the government. So today, this year, while Indonesia is the chairs of ASEAN, Indonesia managed to come up with 3 declarations. Of course, we have a lengthy or heavily, opinion about why every single issues the answer only a policy, only a paper, only a declaration. So that somehow, we always have to have this kinds of criticism. But, during the Indonesian chairship, Indonesia managed to have the declaration on the protection and the placement of migrant fishers, and then declaration on the combating trafficking in person caused by the abuse of technology and dealing with migrant dealing with crisis. So 3 documents. So the presentation, I put a title, movement building, advocating right base for migrants cross-regionally. Why we do that cross-regionally? Because a lot of migrants worker, not just only working internally within ASEAN countries or ASEAN like 10 plus Timor-Leste currently, but also they move to the East Asian countries such as fishers, domestic workers, nurses, caregiver, and so on and so forth. So we know that the government has set a lot of cooperation, both bilateral or multilateral cooperation under ASEAN Plus 3, for instance, China, Japan, Korea, and also G2G, bilateral, the business cooperation among business. They set, like a manufacturer here in the region. They, my gadget, my laptop, my car is come from East Asia technology mainly. So then somehow assembly here in the region. But civil society, academia, has somehow heavily working and networking among countries, respective countries, as well regionally, but somehow we haven't really exposed to the situation, to the policies and the day-by-day setting in East Asia. So that's why we set up BBC instead of British Broadcasting Corporation. It is better engagement between East and Southeast Asia. So later on, I will share about my advocacy about the migrant fishers, the guideline, as well as the issues of online scam happening in this region. The next slide is about basically there is no confirmed international framework available in governing cyberspace in this world, basically, both norm and ethics. So it's somehow difficult if we talk to have a, like a cross-regional or cross-border cooperation. Well, it's very, very much limited, initiative that we can refer as an international human rights framework in these issues. But anyhow, this is the age currently after the globalization, maybe now the internet 4.0, industrial 4.0, 5.0. We are in the globalization that a lot of contestation interest, while at the beginning of state of transnationalism, we know about the state-led transnationalism, that they propose a power, that the extreme case or the worst case of the state transnationalism is colonialization. We know other transnationalism led by the market. We know that this bring a lot of profit and benefit and wealthiness, but at the same time, of course, the market transnationalism also on the face of modern slavery or like exploitation. Us among civil society, academia, and communities, we also have a movement that bring somehow only values, human rights values, democratic values, and anti-corruption values, try to connect and try to watch on or try to be a watchdog of state transnationalism as well as market transnationalism. So I'd like to share a bit about what we did in the migrant visitors advocacy cross-regionally, that now we are proposing a CSO proposal to ASEAN to have a guideline. Just basically, this is the main or the root cause of everything, that the fishery product becoming a global trade commodities, and it is transboundary. If we just only setting up the declaration or the regulation among ASEAN country, it just only solve half of the issues, because they are working in the fishing vessel owned by East Asian country, China, Taiwan, Korea, Japan, and so on and so forth. So it needs to also work with, you know.
Daniel?
Yes.
Would you mind enlarging your slide? We
Yeah,
can.
right. You can enlarge.
Oh,
the
large.
same
Okay, okay.
slide.
Sorry. Okay,
No,
okay,
no,
large. Making it large. Okay.
Go back and yeah, right.
Yeah, thank you so
Okay.
much.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm so sorry. Yeah. All right. So then this basically commodities share a lot of development. You can just see on my slide, increasing all the time, and the stock are becoming so much limited according to the FAO, and it is very much risky. We call it somehow not just only 3D, not just only dirty, dangerous, difficult, but also a deadly sectors, that a lot of death cases happening in these sectors. So somehow it's very much difficult, because the case happening in the distant water and the remote area and so on and so forth, bordering seas and so on and so forth. So this is one of our publication, that basically the TIP, or human trafficking or exploitation, modern slavery, just a tip of iceberg phenomenon. Just we can see on the top, but beneath that, a lot of like a systematic of abuses and violation happening, about the weight deduction, about the very horrible working and living condition, fraud, abuse, and then abuse of vulnerability. So this is the face of the what we face. And yeah, it's always cross-territorial, cross-jurisdiction nature. It's very difficult somehow. In which jurisdiction are we going to file this case? Are we going to proceed that? And it always have an issues with the transnational organized crime, as also we discussed earlier by our previous presentators about the online scheme. And then this particular study is really basically, it's trying to address certain vulnerability, but at the same time also recognizing their contribution. So let's move on to the online scam in Southeast Asia region. It is still, for me, also very new. So I'm so sorry if somehow I'm not having so much knowledge about this tech thing, because throughout our advocacy, like 5 years we've been setting up BBC, we receive some cases on the online trafficking, yeah, involving Indonesian who traffic in Myanmar. Also, just recently, my advisory board also successful, quote unquote, rescuing, yeah, some of the some victim from Myanmar. So this is the current report published by the OCSCR, that it also recognized that state might not have necessary capacity or experiences. So do I. So maybe we are all here, that we still having a lot of heavily. It's very important to discuss about this, and also organized crime and operating cross border. And somehow the Southeast Asian country in larger part failed to respond adequate to online scam operation that evolved since the pandemic. So the number increasing right after the pandemic. A lot of victims confess to us that they get difficulty even to be recognized as the victim. The authority, the police officer cannot recognize whether they are perpetrators or victim. They get so much, difficult in just only sharing. I'm happy that Mina previously mentioned the important to have a non-punishment principle, because they can do a testimony. And Cambodia, I think, it's been there for over a decade, and right after the military coup, then of course Myanmar also one of the destinations already been mentioned by the previous speakers. So we developed this cross-regional network, as I already mentioned, and the secretariat is my organization, the Human Rights Working Group, the Indonesia's NGO Coalition for the International Human Rights Advocacy. So we always see migrant as a cross-regional and cross-border and cross-category issues. So one issues happen in one state can impact to the other states. So it has to be a continuation process. It's also applied both for migrant fishers, but also for the online scam victim. Yeah, how they got difficulty somehow while they are wanna escape and return. Yeah, because we found some cases also they after being escaped they got threat and then they go back again. So it's basically we need to understand this typical of these particular issues. So next slide. Why I cannot move? Okay. If cybercrime were measured as a country, it would be the third largest economy. It is done by the independent report that it's shared. It's basically big business, in terms of profit. Yeah. So in ASEAN, as I mentioned earlier, every time we face a crisis, issues, we try to respond with the declaration or with the political commitment. This year, as I mentioned, we come up with 3 declarations, and one of them is about the ASEAN Declaration on Combating Trafficking in the trafficking person caused by the abuse of technology. Even though we already have the ASEAN Convention, it's legally binding convention on trafficking person, and come up with the whole action plan, but it's not sufficient to deal with the issues of online scam issues. So that's why it needs to have a dedicated. So basically, it is a sharing concern among the leaders to use and abuse on the social media and other online platform in every step of trafficking case activities, from profiling, recruiting, controlling, and exploiting the victim to the laundering of the proceeds of the crime, and acknowledging the interlinkages of issues in trafficking between economic and social development, border management, law enforcement, protections of workers, and respect for human rights, as well as the impact of by the crisis and conflict. So this is the share of the table, yeah, the current data about the online scam cases, yeah, received by Indonesian embassies. I took from the Office of Directorate of Protection of Indonesian Citizen Abroad. So in 2021, the highest case received from Cambodia, followed by the Philippines, and then Myanmar, Thailand, and so on and so forth. But only for the trafficking in person cases, even though the most cases happening in Cambodia, but the trafficking, according to the trafficking, how do you call that, definition, it is in the Philippines, yeah, followed by the Laosian, Myanmar, and so on and so on. It's just basically statistic from the government. I'm sure that the number, it's much more than the traditional definitions of trafficking. So how it works, basically, it's very well explained, very well, how to call that, told, step by step. But this is according to the data that we collect, and we try to arrange, to organize the chronology. First thing first, they come up with fake overseas job, an opportunity through social media, and then trafficker arrange their ticket and travel document. So they got like a easy job, and then freely travel, and then they are feeling somehow internationally accepted, So, and then trafficker arrange their local transportation, so much easy, so much convenient, and accommodation. Victim also forced to create, then while they are arriving on that particular compound, to create a fake social media account, establish communication with some potential targets, and seduce them with some romantic and love scam. Once the target could convince, then the victim offer a vague investment scheme to the target. Yeah? And then after the target already transfer some money, then the victim will erase their social media account. So it's basically happening common from those cases that we already heard by ourselves, but also from the meeting or discussion that we got. So social media has been there. At the beginning, they basically like share, around at the beginning, they come up with their own fan page, and then, but now social media is still stand as the the first platform that the trafficker or the criminals try to do two things basically: fishing and hunting. Fishing is basically just put the advertisement, then waiting who will pick this up, or hunting, really doing some profiling. So the profile most likely doing it that way. Those who are young generation, around 18 to 35 years old, and somehow they are already educated, tech savvy, middle class, and unemployed. So then they are seeking for employment. They are seeking for somehow international experience. They are already so much knowledgeable in terms of tech, and so on and so forth. So that's basically that happening on the profiling. So it is different, from the previous modes of the trafficking, that targeting those who are undocumented and those who are somehow poor, becoming undocumented, those who are uneducated, So now they are literate, they are living in the urban, educated, and somehow they are middle class. And then they start to this cycle, profiling, recruiting, exploiting, controlling, and exploiting. And then this in the middle, basically, we think of how to have a digital penetration. When it's come to digital, maybe the solution also in the digital. So I think digital literacy it is important. Of course, we always have an issue in terms of poverty. I think it's if they have employment, I think they are more resilient rather than they are still seeking certain. And of course, the employment among the youngsters. We still thinking in this state somehow that the best protection in this new modes of trafficking or this crime is basically a prevention. The best protection somehow is still protection. More empower people, more empower youth, to really, understand, and don't ever victimize them or blame them while they got already in this trouble. So I go back a bit to the advocacy cross-regionally while we come up with the policy paper to the ASEAN Declaration on the Placement and the Protection of Migrant Fisher. We try to come up with policy paper from the CSO that we try to have a recommendation, especially addressing their vulnerability, but also recognizing their contribution and ensuring protection, including the effective remedies. So that's what we have. Recently, we just that submit to the ASEAN, and now under the development of the guideline, and Lao will be the chair, while hopefully it will be a regional guideline. We still have a battle whether the guideline will be as a trafficking in person a convention, have a work plan, but now I think the ASEAN member states still don't want to have the work plan. So in ASEAN somehow we work, declaration, and then after that they have like guideline, and then follow with the work plan. Now we still, advocating to not just only have a guideline, but also a work plan in this region. So we've finally submitted this, the guideline to the Ministry of Manpower Indonesia back November last month in Jakarta with some of our friends who developed this draft under the workshop. Go back to the trafficking in person in the online scheme. I think what we need to strengthen is national referral mechanism framework. I think if we have like a referral, because escaping from the compound is so much challenging. So I think we need to refer. We cannot do things nationally. On our silo. Work nationally. We really to have a referral mechanism among countries involved. I heard that it's not just only 40 but 59 countries involved in this particular area. First thing first, I think awareness raising. it's not just only, difficult to get access to justice, to convince, to ensure that it is a crime, our law enforcement is not really see that way, You see that, what's happened, you come by yourself, you subscribe by your own, you voluntary, no one force you to apply that job, always, challenge back, So then so much difficult, to convince. So it is so much awareness raising is so much important, because somehow on the developing country such as Indonesia, for instance, the tech company, and they somehow operating some tech job, they can be seen as a foreign direct investment. They are so happy to have them, So giving certain endorsement even, So that's also, the ways of, economic development mindset is somehow need to be challenged by whether it is safe or no, whether it is, correct or no. It is something that, we have still layers to go. And then, as I mentioned, beyond traditional law enforcement, but of course we have issues with the national security. We heard a lot from our hearing, our discussion, that they are operating in the compound area where it's so much difficult to reach, even in Myanmar, where also if, the Tatmadaw also cannot reach them because they somehow, having their own security. That I think is so much difficult, the places that maybe other panel can share about the site, while the compound is existing. I think we need to learn and also use the technology, including, I don't know whether AI also can help us to really fight back, to do some digital literacy, whether this company having, like a location or no, who they are, because in the traditional business, we know where they operate, who the majority shareholder. But in this kinds of company, we don't know yet, right? I don't know whether AI can answer this difficult question or SATCOM, for the maritime and remote area beyond terrestrial grids context. I don't know exactly the detail of this, but I heard a lot of people talk about it. Later on, maybe we need to learn together about this. Offline situation awareness. This is somehow that things that we can do. We just recently having the ASEAN People Forum, ASEAN Civil Society Conference, and HRWG, my organization, was one of the co-chair of that. More than 1,000 participants coming from the region. We discussed a lot about these issues in there. So solidarity building and advocacy, I think it is so much important. And then promoting multilateral and cross-regional cooperation. Why multilateral? Because I think when we have standard, so then they cannot be disposable. Like for instance, in the case of migrant fisher, if so much difficult to work with Indonesian fisher or Philippine because they are in power, they can exploit Cambodia and Myanmar. So I think we need to set up regional norm. So that's why I'm still, endorsing and working with the ASEAN process, because no matter how slow they are, how weak they are, they're still providing a norm setting that this region have respecting and protecting their rights, meaning the human right of the migrant fisher. I think business and human right, it is something important to be think of, because they are business operation, but business on human right asking about the due diligence of business conduct, right, on human right. So whether they are in compliance or no with this. Of course, we always try to work in the decent work, social protection, access to justice, remedy and victim-centered approach, and non-punishment principle, and then try to work with the national human rights institution. Maybe in Taiwan, we have Control Yuan, and Indonesia, Komnas HAM, and ICER maybe cross-regionally, ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights, using some international human rights mechanism. I'm so sorry, Taiwan is somehow excluded in this, like international membership of the UN, but I'm sure Taiwan can be the champions of the implementations of those norm, international human rights principle. Supporting communication, so much necessary. I don't know in this online scam, because they are heavily having high-tech communication, but their own communication somehow, like hold by the things, So it is for migrant visa, providing Wi-Fi on board, as Joshua and friends doing some campaign on free Wi-Fi campaign. Local, I think local is so much important. Local government, individual, community policing aspect. So I think this is something that we need to spread awareness. So this particular movie, as my last slide, is so much interesting. I always share this to our younger generation, some grouping. So you can later on see by yourself. It is based on some true event, because a lot of event have shared similar patterns. So we come up. So it is done by IOM. It's very good movie. Basically, we have no without doubt about it. So we endorse this to be the awareness raising to the younger generation, because as I mentioned earlier, in this stage where we are so much, knowledgeable about the testing, the best protection is somehow still prevention. I thank you so much. Let's have a discussion. I offer back to Professor Joyce.
So much, Daniel. You help us to move to the stage of what to be done. Okay, we know that this high-tech advancement has upgraded this the scale of this crime, and also the extreme cruelty that can be allowed actually under the eyes of the legal framework. But we also need to use high tech to do counteract, okay, through cross-regional, cross-local solidarity and awareness raising, as you said, and also like recent campaign, Wi-Fi on distant fishing vessels that Jonathan was part of it, and also many countries have joined to fight for the rights for the access to Wi-Fi on distant fishing vessels. And there are more that we could discuss. Maybe we should take a 10 minutes break. Would that be okay? And then we'll come back for Q&A. All right, I believe we have questions from every speakers for each other. And also we have maybe audience from the online, and also students here would like to maybe share their thoughts. So let's take a 10 minutes break. Then we'll come back for a discussion. All right, thank you. So let's start a discussion, and I think we can continue our discussion till maybe 5 o'clock. 可以吗? I know that Nina has to go down south, right?
Yeah.
To Pingtung.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's open up the floor. I think each speaker can raise questions to one another, and also our students can also raise questions or comments. And I heard just now from one of our students from China that he knows a lot of inside stories of his hometown, that who runs this scan industry. But do you want to start? Maybe we can hear some stories, then we just continue our discussion. All right. Now,
我可能会先讲一下这个诈骗是怎么从中国的。
Just maybe Sophie, could you help? No? 你用中文讲对不对？那 Sophie 可以做，同学没有那个 earphone，所以我们做 consecutive 的那个好了，可以吗？
哦，你说我是
就我一段你一段。
那
how many
You want the mic?
No, yeah. Normally I do the translation, but since you are here, hey, you are sure. 可以，Sophie 你坐这边。
Okay.
We encourage our students to also participate and raise questions and comments in Mandarin, Chinese. So we managed to do this interpretation. Okay, Sophie can help. Thank you so
So
much.
she's gonna interpret it from Chinese or,
Yeah.
okay, how do I listen to the interpretation?
Yes.
Oh,
English.
okay, I thought it- okay, I thought
Yeah,
it
we
was
do
an
that
online thing.
No, because it's not connected online, so I will
Yeah.
do it like this.
Can we define?
那个很好。我的故事会从中国的诈骗为什么会从中国开始，然后转移到东南亚，然后如此形成一个这样的产业链。起初诈骗是在中国的小乡村里开始蔓延的。
这样收笔要做逐句的啊，因为那样太快了。
或者是你会讲一整段吗？
或者是
然后
就这样一段，你自己可以停的时候让 Sophie 来那个。
就是诈骗起初是在中国的一些小城市的一些部分的村落，然后相当于城中村这样。
Yeah. So, but yes, he's talking about a case in China. So they're talking about scams started in China in a small village, like a village in village, something like that. Yeah.
很多的小村落以后没有什么工作，然后逐渐的蔓延出这样去骗别人钱的一种方式。起初可能只是在生活中，然后去骗人，然后赚一些钱。后来随着网络的发展，他们开始运用互联网和电话进行做电信诈骗，这就是起初的起源。
Yeah, so in the beginning, a lot of people were out of work, so they were unemployed. So in the beginning, they tried to get money from scamming people around them. And then later on with the internet and then with the phone, and then they started using phone calls or something online to try to get more people to scam more people, basically.
这个会发展起来的原因，就是因为诈骗它的收入非常的高，可能会远超大家的想象。可能他一通电话就能骗到5万、10万，然后由此积累，然后随着一个人的带动，然后全家人都会融入到这个诈骗的就是这个诈骗的工作里，去赚更多的钱，因为发现这个暴利的行业远超于他们以前所做的所有工作。
So the profit was extremely huge. So they could basically make like how much 50,000 renminbi, right? Yeah, just by one phone call. So this was too attractive to them, and then they started to get more people involved. So their family, maybe one person did it in the beginning, and then their whole family were involved, and then they started to generate more and more profit out of this.
Mary, when was it? You said it all started from some place in your hometown or some village?
福建和广东的一些三线城市的一些村落里开始。
When? Before?
大概在2000年。
2000. Okay. Yeah, that's really before everything.
它跟毒品交易是混织在一起，基本上是同时发生的，毒品跟诈骗。
And also with drug dealing.
然后随着这两个贸易的逐渐扩大，他们就开始组建自己的武装力量，就是他们会在村落里，因为需要有强大的运输，然后来保障这些，它其实跟毒品一起发展的，所以它毒品也是贸易链的一条，所以他们就会发展出武装力量来保卫自己的这个整个过程，然后腐败也会渗入到官员内部，就是从起初开始兴起的时候。
So they It's complicated.
Maybe Mina might be able to help because she's more into this whole network.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it started from like some second and third layers of the cities in Fujian and Guangdong around 2000, and it was collaborated together with like the drug trafficking process, and then gradually the trade becomes bigger, and the criminals start in kind of adding the armed forces to protect themselves and also to corrupt the local officials.
因为他们要招募更多的人去做诈骗性的事情，才能有更多的盈利。所以他们不仅从同乡人开始聚集，他们也从外面召集其他外县市的人来一起涌入进来。
Because they need to have more people to be able to be profitable. So not only that they recruit people from the same city, same village, but also starting to recruit more people from other areas.
但很快，他们这个举动就遭到了政府的压制，因为他们已经发展出了自己的网络集团，然后而且这也是政府不能容忍的，你发展自己的武装力量，所以他们逐渐开始。
Quickly, the government is suppressing them because the government cannot accept this kind of development, especially because they also have the armed forces. So the government start noticing and try to crack down those people.
这个清剿大概持续了10年，就是10年之久，从福建到广东到全国。
The crackdown continued for almost 10 years, from Fujian to Guangdong to other provinces.
所以他们就开始逐渐转移自己的基地。那既然这里没法做这些事情，或者是我们没法做这种继续从事这种暴力性的行业，他们就要转移这个基地到一些没有人可以管控的地方。
So they start shifting their base since they cannot continue in their original location. They want to shift it to somewhere they can make the profit and nobody can control them.
福建和广东的移民在整个世界都是很多的，所以他们逐渐发现了一个地方，就是东南亚，是一个既不懂得互联网科技，然后也是政局比较混乱的区域，最适合他们的发展。
Migrants from Fujian and Guangdong are everywhere in the world, so they start really realizing that in Southeast Asia is the best location because Southeast Asia is not that familiar with the internet yet, and also it's easier to conduct corruption and to.
比如他们在缅甸这些地方去建立一些公司，可能那些的政府根本不知道他们在做什么。
Initially from Myanmar, the local government may not even realize what they are doing. They just have the little companies there, but local government had no awareness.
但他们每天就能赚到非常多的钱，所以接下来我会以缅甸作为一个案例来试着可能会引入大家为什么东南亚会有这么多的诈骗集团在那里。
So for example, they earn a lot of money in Myanmar. So now I'm going to give Myanmar as an example, like how scamming criminal activities are able to earn lots of money in Myanmar.
在缅甸，它南部是由缅甸的政府控制的。 而北部的几个区域都有几大家族分别管控自己的领域。
So in Myanmar, the southern part is controlled by Myanmar government. However, in the northern part, they are by several major families there.
在几大家族的管控中，缅甸政府是无法介入这些带有军队家族的这个政府管控的，缅甸政府是没有办法介入他们这些。 私人武装力量的管控的区域。
The Myanmar authorities are not able to intervene those controlled areas that controlled by the big families because those families are armed.
所以当地的诈骗集团就在逐渐的发展过程中，就和当地的一些私人武装力量组织起来，形成更大的保护伞的一样的集团。它有集团为他们输送利益。 然后他们来保护他们的运作。
So the scamming criminals realize how they can work together with the armed families, and they start kind of exchanging the interest. The armed forces are providing the protections. The scamming criminals are able to give them profits.
如果有人想从这个集团里跑出去，那当地的一些军事武装力量的人，他不会说保护你这个人，帮你跑出去。 他们会反而把你抓回去送给这个集团内部，因为把你抓回去可能会获得20-30万的利润一个人，但是我把你保护者送给你的国家，我可能只是拿到政府给我的一些工资，所以他们不会这么多。
什么币值？30万的
人民币。
Okay. So therefore, when the victims say they are searching for rescue, and they report to the local armed forces, the armed forces, instead of sending them back to their home country and rescue them, they will actually send those victims back to the scamming criminals, because by sending the victim back to the criminals, you can earn like 200,000, 300,000 renminbi profit. While if you help that victim to go back to their home countries, you are not able to get the same kind of interest.
缅甸的政府没有办法介入，一方面是因为它的管控区域并没有到达那些地方，另一方面是它也没有能力跟北部的这几个或者北部跟东部的这几个武装力量形成能够抵抗的这个实力。
So the Myanmar government is not able to compete with those forces because the area they're controlling is basically not even the same, and they are also not able to compete in terms of the military force with those major families.
那些家族控制的这些军事武装力量不需要考虑国际的声誉，所以他们可以肆无忌惮的接受贿赂去做这些事情，但是但是缅甸政府不可以，所以这也就是为什么在东南亚这些比较混乱的区域，它能够成为一个驻地。
So those families who are armed, they are private armed force. Therefore, they don't need to worry about international reputation, international rules, so they can do whatever they want. While the actual Myanmar governments, they still have to care to a certain degree. And therefore, for the scamming operations that's protected by the armed families, they can be very much operating outside the law.
前段时间，中国和缅甸有一个很大的合作，就是在清剿这个诈骗集团。但是据我所知，在他们联合行动成立之后没有多久，诈骗集团头目就已经知道了所有的细节，立刻逃跑出了缅甸，已经跑到泰国。
Yeah, so a while ago, recently, there are some crackdown actions together by the collaboration of Chinese governments and the Myanmar like authorities. But based on what I know, the moment when they kind of establish that operations, the criminals already get the news, so they quickly run away from Myanmar to Thailand to hide.
对，这大概就是一些story 一些细节，所以这是为什么东南亚最近会成为这个他们驻地的一个比较复杂的，既有政治因素也有经济因素的一个。
So this is the story and the context why Southeast Asia become an area for criminals for the political reason and economic reasons. Thank you. 谢谢 Thank you.
Interesting. 那个 pass 这个 microphone 有没有其他的问题？That related to that is that some criminals are charged in China. They left China and bought their nationality in Cambodia, right? And they start a business again because they have a really easy passage to other like this the port city. So maybe that's some people said that there's a rise of techno-feudalism referring to Russia. But what's a new name we could think of for this? Gangster feudalism? People the landlord, right? They have their armed forces and they build up their industry, crime industry, and then their power can rival against this local authority, and local authority actually want to allow them to thrive so that they also benefit, right? We know that they also benefit the higher authorities from Cambodia or maybe Myanmar. Maybe other common questions?
I did think of one thing, while you were talking, it was, like you translated to me that it was like.
Do you want to introduce yourself so that they know?
Sure, sorry, I'm
from?
Christine, I'm an exchange student from Denmark. Yeah, and I was thinking about something that you said, that they crack down, like they come to the town because they see Southeast Asia as like an easy target. it's a very vague question, but is it known like who they are? Like where does it, so to speak, start? Like who are the main like actors? Because like, assuming there's a lot of countries involved, but like the very top, is that like known in anywhere?
You mean the
You
criminal?
can talk
right?
about
Yeah,
it,
the criminal, like,
golden
the
triangle,
ones who are
the
doing the
金三角.
Yeah.
They know
Yeah.
each other, right?
Okay.
There is the drug dealing gangsters, 金三角, golden triangle. You can tell more about it.
Yeah. Maybe I can start and feel free to add more. So yeah, the criminals are very much public and open, especially those like a higher level one, like those compound owners. For those scamming company owners, they may be slightly lower profile, but then the compound owners, I can give you lots of names, 徐爱明, Dong Licheng, like a 石之江, like lots of names. And that's the reason why I give the example, for example, like Italian mafia, so like Latin American mafia. Basically, these are well-known people, and they may actually even have some charitable foundations that at the same time giving money to schools and showing that they are doing some good things for society, but at the same time, doing all kinds of drug trafficking, sex trafficking, scamming compounds, and everything. So yeah, like we do know who they are, and I think roughly a week ago, there were some actually very exciting developments. So the UK government and some other allies, they start sanctioning the criminals through those like the high profile one, because it's not even a secret. It's like open secret. You can see them everywhere. Many of them have like casino business and then hotel business and then those scamming and fraud businesses. So I would say, yeah, I mean, it's a huge industry. Like as you mentioned, like half of Cambodia's GDP or like hundreds of thousands of people are inside. So yes, for sure, there are still lots of stakeholders accountable for what's happening, but at least those big ones, we know very clearly who they are. And I would say it's a kind of like low-hanging fruit that intentional society should start with those peoples and making sure there's criminal accountabilities and not allowing them to do whatever they want. Yeah, thank you. This is a good question. And do you want to add more?
因为我刚才也讲到过，就是它跟毒品其实是相互交织开始产
As
生
I mentioned, it's interlinked with drug trafficking.
所以在金三角它本身就是一个毒品聚集地，它是一个毒品在跨国交易的一个重要的据点。
The Golden Triangle area, which is around like Thailand, Laos, and Myanmar, has always been an important location, a source country
For decades.
for decades for drug trafficking.
那你本来就已经建立了类似于诈骗的，而是另一个形式的这样一种保护伞跟印度的这种集团的这种利益输送的模式，所以他们很适合这种新型的诈骗形式去进入。
So that area has always been a great environment for criminal activities, for exchanging interest and benefit to each other, different stakeholders. So that's the reason why it's a perfect environment for criminals to thrive, other than drug, but also other type of
所以
criminal
他们
activities.
在转移这个据点的时候，就选择从福建、广东，从云南开始走线走路到这个地方。他们不需要签证，他们只需要从云南翻山越岭，跨过那个区域之后到达这个地方，然后组建他们自己的组织，就重新开始运作。
So that's the reason why in the beginning from Yunnan province of China, they don't really need even visa or passport, but just basically cross the mountain and they will be already in Myanmar and able to start the operation. Any other speakers would like to answer
Yeah.
the questions around Christine's question?
Maybe Jorge or Jane or Daniel or
Yeah.
do you want?
May I just
Yeah, please.
make a
Go
comment?
ahead.
Because given the exchanges so far and the presentations that were made so far, it's very obvious that we're dealing with not just one organization, but a network of organizations that possess tremendous resources, tremendous contacts, not only with their own organized crime groups, but also with governments, with the business sector, and with individuals. There's a great deal of intersectionality that is taking place here, to the point that you asked the question, where do we start? The US TIP report would like to think that prosecution is the key. punishing, convicting them. But I wonder whether that's really going to solve the problem, because I mean, they're only going just to set up another operation, elsewhere. And we know, I think it was Mina or Alicia's presentation where there were SIM cards shown. In the Philippines, we've had Chinese nationals possessing Philippine passports, possessing national IDs that are genuine. That are genuine. So you wonder how are they able to, possess these kinds of identification documents? So I think the other thing that is somehow missing here would be the legal parameters, because different countries have their own legal, frameworks. So I wonder whether there's also a need to touch on that as well. Maybe not in this project, but maybe in some other undertaking in the future, about the legal frameworks that operate within the different countries, because the Philippines has a different legal framework. Laos, Thailand, Taiwan would have different legal frameworks. And I wonder, definitely organized crime groups are taking advantage of that situation. So maybe it's about time that we try to find some common ground as well in this area. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. I know Jonathan wants to say something, but yeah, it's true that each country has its own legal practices, but even within each country, their legal practices have their gray zone, and also they have the empty the zones that no department wants to touch or could touch upon. So there are there's empty zones that people the crime would accumulate. Okay, and maybe not to mention there's a transnational passport offering. They can purchase their nationality or a passport through investment. Those gangsters, they have their traditional like financial elite for hundreds of years, 徽商 or 粤商 or this. So this term pig slaughtering actually is an ancient it's an old term for the victims. So now they are calling them pig slaughtering business. 杀宰猪仔 杀猪仔 those are the terms also used for the coolie in the 19th century. So Jonathan, yeah, go ahead. No. Unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, okay. Yes.
Yeah, so my earphones seems don't function properly. I just want to share some thoughts here. The question of spatial economics here are bringing parallel practices in the scamming compound, seafood industries, nickel, gambling, and also financial technologies. Like this spatial economic are developed by different governments to bring in investment from other countries. I can reflect this on Indonesian practices, where the government issued different legal frameworks to accommodate these spatial economics, like spatial economics on seafood, spatial economic on nickel industries, and on financial technologies, where the government terminate its law through special economic regulation or special economic investment to allow these operations. So even though we are sacrificing our own people, but to bring this big chunk of money to our country, we put aside our own regulation, even though it's already existing. And I think all of this come to answer our demand. like the gambling, like Indonesian, there are some recent news showing that Indonesian is the most registered gamblers in Southeast Asia, because the gambling is prohibited or illegal in Indonesia, and financial technologies allows all of this. And talking about the recruitment, I think the ICT here is just the infrastructure that allow this to happen, and it's literally targeting different populations, like what have been described by Daniel earlier, that the ICT is something that is fancy actually. Only urban people, mostly educated and probably middle class, who are able to consume or are able to use this information to get job overseas. Like I was teaching in 2019 in a high school in Indonesia, and in 2022, I found out that around 30 of my students, ex-students who have graduated, went to Cambodia to work as in a different gambling compounds, and luckily they are able to go out of that area before the arrest and move to the Philippines. And recently they start in and out of the Philippines in some islands. So literally changing phenomenon. Yeah, and in my understanding, the recruitment of this population from Indonesia is not going through a registered money agencies or recognized intermediaries. They're going through personal networks in the process. Someone they know from the internet, or friends who have been there in the first place. And these people are actually, like, to my understanding, they are smart people. Some of them are even have degrees, like undergrad degrees. But the economic situation, or maybe the idea to work overseas, bring them to this situation. Yeah, this is what I can share from Indonesia. And also, other thing that I want to edit is Indonesia is actually a site for recruitment and also for employment. Since 10 years ago, our government have established 20 special economic zones in Indonesia, mostly industrial, for nickel and other mining sectors, right? And we have seen so many reports of Chinese nationals found themselves trapped into these industries. They were promised a salary of 2,000 US dollar per month, but they end up living in a container in the special economic zones. Some of them in 2021 bought a vessel, a small boat from the locals, and sailed the boat to Malaysia, in which they end up in Malaysia being considered as illegal immigrants. But after they get out from Malaysia, they were arrested in China for national security issues. So I think most of the investment in the special economic zones in Indonesia are Chinese owned, and I think there are many practices of scamming inside, like not the gambling scamming, but people who are hired through scamming from China. But as an Indonesian, many of us just don't know about this because our government really protect this foreign investment, and even sacrificing our own people. Yeah.
Getting more and more depressive. Any other comments?
May I comment?
So, yeah, please.
Yeah.
We to keep thinking what Jorge just mentioned. There's the loophole in each country's law, but also the law intersections between different countries. The law still cannot reach. So there's the problem. So what should we do if we want to have this trans-regional collaboration or solidarity? But the law actually is still the barriers that cannot touch this local financial elite or financial mafias. Yeah, Daniel, please.
Yes, I think our society currently, our civilization currently have already stated that the main task of the government as the country is really trying to protect their own citizen as the first place, basically. So that's mainly the somehow it is of course the mandate from the constitution, but at the same time they treat they are not their citizen, so that's becoming like a uh, uh, non-equally treated the same way. It's just discrimination, basically. See, okay, it does not belong to my citizen, so that's why I think it's not my part to solve things out. But I think go back to my thesis that even in the international setting, there is no such an international framework that available in terms of governing the cyberspace. So I think this is like a somehow it is urgent for the academic community. It's trying to set up how to setting up the roles, how to setting up the ethics, and how to really operating it into law enforcement and law enforcer cooperation, because somehow it can be easily or very good like ASEAN put it in the paper, but the implementation so much difficult to understand the spirit what's really written on the document. And then the second of all, I think we need to also challenge, especially like in Indonesian context, as mentioned also by Jonathan, setting up some economic zone, or we call it as National Strategic Project, PSN, Proyek Strategis Nasional, that they really, like a hunger to have a development, no matter the development it is, it's so much development. So they like welcoming every single foreign direct investment. So it is somehow so much tricky, but when it merged with the fintech, financial technology, and then the, like the digital disruption, then people don't know what is it digital, what is it technology. They're just accepting it as it is, and they thought it is a good for their economic development. So then it is also creating an issue. So I mentioned also earlier that of course we agree with the development, but development without justice is somehow not giving anything to the victim, basically. So yeah, I think cross-regional cooperation, I don't think this is an issue, because even within regional cooperation, we have still so much like a weak, in terms of Interpol cooperation, and so I suggest to have like a somehow cooperation among NHRI or national human rights institution can work together to do investigation over not just only their labor rights violation or abuses, but also their human rights, that they are being beaten, they are being electricity, like a shock, when they cannot get the target, and then they get shocked, electrically shocked, and it's really in parallel, if you don't get the target, how much shock you got. So a lot of horrible picture we see. So I think this kinds of like a how do you call that, extraterritorial obligation, it need to be extended, working beyond national. It is somehow our all task to setting up those norm setting and how to operate it into the agreed and operate properly in the field. I thank you so much about it.
Yeah, thank you. Please, Amina.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for the comments. I very much agree that the solution has to come from a higher place. So just to share a little bit about what HRC is doing these days, and I think there's angle for like working together as well. So we started approaching, for example, UNODC, potentially having some resolution in the UN bodies, trying to really define and having some global awareness and consensus, the human trafficking and scamming compound, the intersection of that. Because of course within our circle we heard about it, we talk about it, but then actually if you go on the street and talk with anybody about scamming compounds, still many people have no idea about that. So there's actually another convention through UNODC is coming out soon. It's about like a cybercrime, but then that one is not going to be very much fitting for our context. It's more around for sort of spy and cybercrime, that kind of area, not very much about scam. So then the idea is that we need a country to put out the potential resolutions in UNODC and then be able to start a discussion. I mean, it's maybe under the framework of scam, but of course, all over here, I care very much around this forced labor and trafficking element of it. So that could be one angle to start like steering the international discussion, because otherwise right now it's still being viewed as a very Southeast Asian problem, even though it's not. I mean, the victims of both sides, victims who are forced labor and victims who lost their money, are global. And then Interpol is saying this is a global warming issue, which means it has the threat internationally. So yeah, beyond prosecution by country itself, beyond like thinking this through ASEAN angle, it's worth to thinking it in a even more like international global angle, like how we can mobilize UN bodies to really having actions on this. And thank you for the discussion.
Maybe other, we may have 10 more minutes to close. Other people want to comment? Have we? Any story from, yeah, here, Mike? Not Malaysia. Yeah, right.
When talking about how do we deal over,
Yes.
in terms of legislative changes, what I'm worrying is that Southeast Asia, when talking about enacting new laws to govern about the digital world of cyberspace, it easily fall into more state control and surveillance on your mobile phone. Like what she mentioned is that in her field research, she observed that the farmers,
I have a peasant worker in China.
she encounters the farmers in China, and then in their handphones they have already installed certain apps or software to monitor all the information they receive by the state. So it's kind of another layer of problem that we're talking about, so that we to have more control.
On one hand, more control, the other hand, more crimes, and also local financial elite powers, they transcend the state. They have no law to censor or to regulate. And also there's a power is going beyond the national territory because of the cyber platform and the advancement of the cyber technology. Both from the state's side to control, to censor, even, for example, Palestinian people don't dare to go to the street to for protest because it could be videotaped, or their family back home could suffer from that, or people from Uyghur or Xinjiang or all over, or Hong Kong. So what do we do? Local law do not really protect their nationals according to constitution. They should, but they don't. And also they don't protect different layers of citizens, not to mention non-citizens or stateless persons. So we want to push the law to intervene, but the law lags behind. I don't know whether we have audience from the law sectors, and we invited several law scholars and lawyers to participate. They declined because of they're busy, or I don't know. They are busy with law court suit, but this is an important issue that the so-called intersections don't happen, and so that their crimes keep growing. But still, we need to do something, right? As Daniel said, this, or Mina is doing, to build up cross-local, cross-regional collaboration, collaborating with UN's human rights or forced labor or refugee group, and also local vigilance. I mean, everyone maybe could do something, but of course, when we confront this huge crime and huge brutality and huge darkness, like an abyss, it seems that we don't have any power, right? But still, just like also the other forms of state crime and war and killing keep going. But still, I think we still can do something with different effort, different ways. All right, I don't want to put people into such a distress, pessimistic mood, but I think we end with the will that we will do something in different ways, right? So, thank you so much, Alicia, Daniel, Jorge, Jean, Amina, and everyone. Okay. The work, I will not promise you to become better, but we will have more determination to do something in maybe writing or other action, so that in the future something could change, could happen, could happen in a small way. All right. Okay, let's
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
Jorge.
everyone.